in conflict resolution, this is very much your enemy. Okay, hi everybody. Thanks for coming back if you've been here before, or hi, welcome if you're new. My name's Mickey, I'm a therapist, and we talk about therapy things on this channel. Today, we are talking about communication skills because I think this is useful information, and also because I talk about it a lot on TikTok and like Instagram and other places, but we've yet to like have a dedicated video in that same style here, so we're doing that. I thought that this would be timely and useful also because we've been doing a lot of reaction videos to reality TV dating, which is just like a case study in poor communication skills. So I thought that this would be a nice complement to all of that content for us to kind of talk about the actual communication skills in like a dedicated space. So you don't have to filter through like fucking 3 hours of footage in order to find the useful tips. So that's what we're doing. I have 5 communication tips for you. There's like an endless amount of communication things that I could talk about, but I tried to just pick 5. So that's what we're doing. Let's talk about it. So tip 1 is to check your intentions. When I say check your intentions, this is kind of an umbrella term. There's lots of stuff that goes into checking your intentions with the communication. And so I want to talk about all of them in like a somewhat brief way. But first and foremost, I want to encourage people to ask themselves, like, what's my goal in initiating this dialogue? What are the things that I'm hoping to achieve or to get at the end of this conversation? When we initiate communication with our partner or partners, it's really important that we have a clear goal in mind. A, because we want the conversation to fucking go somewhere, but B, because this is a nice litmus test or like checkpoint, I guess, because if you're going into the conversation with the intention of winning, with the intention of like hurting your partner because they hurt you, with the intention of like just talking at your partner but with no intention of listening, then we might need to do some other reflecting before we actually initiate that dialogue. That's why I said this is sort of chronological, because I think this is a very important step to be doing before you actually sit down with your partner or partners and be like, hey, I want to talk about something. Do some reflecting. I really want to invite you to like look inward and ask yourself some questions about what's going on for you internally. Again, what are your goals? What are your hopes? And especially if you're going into the conversation with this attitude of like wanting to win or wanting to be like in conflict with your partner, that might not lend itself to actual conflict resolution. So we might need to circle back once you've had the opportunity to do some more emotional processing or like maybe ranting with your safe people or what have you. The other thing that I think falls under this umbrella is actually checking your own mood. It's very, very common for people to want to have conflict resolution like in the actual moment that the thing is happening. Sometimes this is useful, sometimes it's not, especially if you're in a place where your mood is kind of like all over the place. Like if you're very angry or you're very sad or you're just very overwhelmed and you're not feeling especially confident in your ability to successfully regulate your emotions, then I really would encourage you to, again, like pause, take some time, have like an adult timeout. I've talked about that on my Instagram and my TikTok, but basically, which by the way, if you don't follow me on Instagram or TikTok, you should go do that. I'll put the thingies here. But basically that just gives yourself, or that's just the process of giving yourself time and space to feel how you feel, to like air those emotions out with a safe person who's not the person that you're mad at, and to come back to this place of emotional center so that we can have a more calm and respectful conversation around the thing. The use in this, I think, is that it's important for us to be aware that when we have conflict resolution or like an uncomfortable discussion with someone, that like feelings are going to come up. That's very human. The goal in communicating is not to be like emotionless or to not have an emotional reaction, but I do think it's wise to bear that in mind. Your partner might say some shit that will push your buttons. You know what I mean? That's very normal. Like that happens a lot. And if you're already in this place of emotional distress and you're not feeling confident about your ability to successfully regulate, then when your partner says something that pushes your buttons, it might push you off a cliff, and then we have like more of an issue than we started with. So I want to encourage everybody to sort of take stock where you're at, where you're going, what's the plan here, and like, how are you doing? Like, are you okay? Do you need support? Do you need time or space? Because again, those are very human needs and you deserve to have them met. Tip number 2 is like a little bit of a hard one. I am guilty of this one also, but take things one issue at a time. It's very easy, especially when like real ass adult life gets in our way, to end up in this sort of like dogpile situation where like, especially for people who have children, or like who are responsible for caring for other beings, it can be very overwhelming to try and find time to sit down with your person or your people and say like, these are the things that I want to talk about. And so it's common for like, you know, frustration about the dishwasher not getting loaded, and frustration about like you forgot to pay this bill, and like you said something that hurt my feelings, and then this happened and then that happened. So by the time we actually have the opportunity to talk, it feels like there's this list of stuff that you want to get off your chest. And again, I want to validate this. This is very human. This is something that I also do as a person. It's a hard habit to break. The reason I want to encourage people to take things one issue at a time is because when we do the laundry list thing where we sit our partner down and we say, hey, here's the deal. You did things A through F that pissed me off this week. Two things happen. First and foremost, your person gets defensive. This is a human reaction. It's very difficult to not get defensive during conflict resolution generally, but especially when we feel like we've been brought into a dialogue for the express purpose of just being told all the ways that we're a fuck up, especially depending on whatever trauma wounds somebody's bringing to the table, whatever insecurities or like feelings about themselves are present. It's natural and like understandable for someone to get defensive. Not that you're responsible for regulating the emotions of someone else, but it is, I think, wise to bear in mind what the potential and like most likely outcome of that behavior is. And so it behooves you to do things one issue at a time. The second thing that happens when we do this is that we get kind of lost in the sauce. My husband and I say this all the time. This is a term that I've now like explained to my clients. When we get lost in the sauce, there's this thing that happens where we started with this core issue, right? And then because we got defensive because we brought up all of these other things, your partner might say like, you always do this where you just attack me with all this stuff. Why are you attacking me right now? And then you might say, well, I'm not attacking you. I just haven't had the chance to talk to you because we're like doing all this stuff and I'm fucking overwhelmed and I'm frustrated and I want to talk to you about this. And then like, see what's happening? We're like, now we're overwhelmed, now we're frustrated at each other, and now we're fighting about the way that we're fighting. Now we're in an argument and we're not conflict resolving anything. So we're like deep in the sauce right now. That's not helpful to anybody because A, your core issue that you wanted to talk about is not being addressed, but B, we're like now in this place of just sort of mutually exchanging hurt with one another. And that again doesn't lend itself to this conflict resolution place, and especially not to this place of feeling like connected and like on the same team as your partner. It can very much foster this adversarial relationship in the conversation. And so I want to encourage people to practice the one issue at a time thing. Again, I want to honor that this can be hard because like shit comes up and it's like valid and understandable. But tip number 3, I think, is going to help with narrowing that down. Tip number 3 is to find your core issue. So in the example that I talked about before with like the dishwasher not getting loaded and someone forgetting to pay a bill or like picking up the kids late or like saying something mean, these are all like situational things, and it's valid to be upset about these situational things in your own right. However, sometimes it's helpful to, again, before we initiate this dialogue with your person or your people, to reflect and sit with yourself and ask some like carefully guided questions about like, how are all of these things related? Or like, why actually am I upset about the dishwasher not getting loaded or the bill not getting paid or you saying something in passing that hurt my feelings? What at the deeper level is the actual issue that's happening here? Because rarely what happens is that the actual thing is the reason that we're upset. It may have been like the inciting incident, and it is valid to be upset about your partner like promising to load the dishwasher but then they don't. But usually there's also like an underlying feeling and some kind of like absorbed message that we have. A lot of times this is a feeling of like loneliness or feeling unseen by your partner, feeling uncared for by your partner. And so it's helpful to kind of narrow in on what that is. For example, if you're upset about your partner not loading the dishwasher when they told you that they would, and because they like did the laundry wrong or something, and because they forgot to put something on the grocery list that y'all needed, these are all like household labor things, right? So the underlying like core issue here might be feeling like the division of labor is unequal. It might be feeling like your labor is going unseen by your partner. Maybe you're feeling alone or you're feeling not supported by your partner. Maybe you're just not feeling connected to your partner and like there's this space between the two of you where you're trying to do this stuff and they're trying to do other stuff, but you're not doing it together as a team, and that hurts your heart a little bit. Like, these are all valid things. And again, I want to be clear, I can't speak for anybody specifically this video, especially, but all the content on my channel generally is meant to be like educational, entertainment based. Like, this is not therapy. This is not like specifically about you. So like, take what works and leave the rest. But these are all like valid things that someone could be upset about, right? And so when we do this work of narrowing down like what's the core issue here, then we can communicate like, hey, do you have a minute to talk? Like, there's some stuff that I want to talk to you about. And you communicate to your partner, hey, like there's some stuff that happened this week and it made me feel disconnected from you, or it made me feel like maybe we should revisit the conversation about our division of labor, or it made me feel like you don't really see me and that made me sad, or like that hurt my feelings, or like whatever. That's a much more useful conversation to be having in this relationship dynamic where we're trying to foster this sense of like being on the same team and like working with each other instead of working against each other. Because again, when we do the thing where we like laundry list all of this stuff and we just say like, these are the things that you did wrong, we might be implementing solutions for like practical issues, but then the underlying issue is not going or not being addressed. But B, it's sometimes difficult to even get to that place in the first place. So when we form conversations from this perspective, it increases the odds that you guys will actually get to talk about the thing that's upsetting you. And then you have the opportunity to voice to your partner like, hey, I just need some emotional space, or like I'm feeling some type of way. I would, like for you to make some space for me to talk about it, or for, us to have some time together, or like, whatever it is that you need in order to feel more connected and to feel more seen by your partner. You can ask for those more easily when the conversation isn't like escalating to this place where we're getting lost. Thing number 4, you're not responsible for the emotions of others. This felt especially important for me to include because the analytics would inform me that the vast majority of my audience chooses to identify themselves as female, at least given like YouTube's option for binary gender options, I'm pretty sure. And so this felt important for that reason, especially for people who are socialized as women or femme presenting people and who absorb these attitudes that society has about like what women should be doing. This is a common issue that we deal with. This expectation that it's our job to be like caretakers for other people. It's our job to be managing and aware and like almost more aware of the emotions of other people than we are of ourselves. In conflict resolution, this is very much your enemy. And it's also something that can be exploited if your partner is not being mindful of whether they're being manipulative or not. We've talked about this on the channel before, but especially the like self-pity party thing where you voice a concern to a partner and they say, you're right, I'm the worst, I'm terrible, I'm the most awful partner on the face of the planet. Oftentimes the impulse, again, for women and femme presenting people and people who have absorbed the attitudes that are traditionally assigned to women, is this natural impulse to go, well, I mean, that's not what I said. You're not the worst. It's just not that you're the worst. It's just that, this thing happened. And see what we're doing? We're now all of a sudden, the feeling is that you're supposed to be like soothing, like smoothing the ego or the feelings of someone else. And we're no longer talking about the core issue that you wanted to address in the first place. This is a problem, obviously. The reason that I wanted to talk about this too is because, again, the analytics inform me that the vast majority of my audience are people over 18 and are like adults in theory, unless you're lying. But I'm assuming that most people who are watching and consuming my content are adults. And so this is an important piece of the conversation here, because especially in relationships between two consenting adult human beings, the person who first and foremost is responsible for your emotions is you. It is our job as individual adult human beings to be able to successfully regulate our own emotions, to be responsible for the outcomes of our emotions, to be aware of how our emotions affect us and might influence our behavior, and ultimately to deal with our own emotions. It's not that being a partner to someone doesn't mean that you shouldn't care about their feelings at all. That's not what I'm saying. It is very much normal and also healthy and acceptable and okay for you to have a vested interest in caring for your partner's emotions. However, during conflict resolution, it is okay for you to say, this is the core issue that I want to address with you. I recognize that this might hurt your feelings and I don't want to hurt your feelings. However, I do still feel strongly about having the thing that's important to me heard. And so once I'm finished, once I feel like we as a team have addressed the concern that I brought to the table, I will happily offer emotional support to you. I can cuddle with you, we can talk about you, but right now it's not about you. It's about me. I'm allowed to take up space. I really want to encourage people to channel this energy, because we can set boundaries in those moments, especially if our partner is either intentionally or accidentally doing the self-pity party thing. It is okay for you to say, I recognize that you feel that way and I get that. I want to talk about that with you in a minute, but I don't have space to talk about it right now. I want to talk about the thing that's important to me, and then we can make space for you afterwards. This is not mean. This is not shitty or hurtful or you being a bad partner, and this is not something that we talk about nearly as often as I think we should as a society of people, because it's a common issue. And again, this is one of those things where we can like get derailed really quickly and can potentially lead to feelings of resentment and things like that. Because if your core issue is not being addressed, and this happens often enough, it's very human and very normal for you to feel like, fuck, man, when do my feelings ever get addressed? When do my concerns ever get addressed? Because it feels like when I bring this up, then we end up talking about you, and then I still am not feeling better. It is okay for you to take up space in your relationship and to clearly set a boundary with your partner that while I do care for your emotions, while I do want to be part of the team who helps manage your emotions, ultimately I need you to be the adult and to manage your own emotions right now so that I can make space for my emotions. Especially like with the honesty piece here, like honesty and communication is so key, and it's really difficult for us to be honest and to be as forthcoming as we would like to be when there's this feeling of obligation to manage the emotions of others. So I really want to encourage people to release themselves of this expectation and to set those boundaries, again, in a kind and compassionate and respectful way. It's entirely possible to do that and also still show up for yourself because you deserve that. My last tip for you, kind of a fun one, it's kind of an easier one, especially for people who have a hard time communicating things or like spitting the stuff out because communication can be kind of scary to you. I really want to invite people to fully like go meta in your communication style. If you're having a hard time spitting something out, or it's scary or uncomfortable, or maybe you don't know how to say something, sometimes it's just helpful to say that. Like, there's nothing wrong with leading with some honesty there and being like, hey, I want to have a conversation with you. I don't really know how to do this though. Like, it maybe feels uncomfortable, or like maybe my childhood didn't empower me to communicate in a way that I felt comfortable with. And so like, I don't know how to do this, man. It's okay for you to say that and to just lead with that energy. Oftentimes this is an objection that I get in clinical work where folks will say like, okay, but I don't know how to say that. Or like, what if I say that and they get mad? Or like, what if I say this and it hurts someone's feelings? Like, I don't know how to phrase this in a way that doesn't sound mean. Maybe just try saying that. Like, I have run this conversation over and over and over in my head, and I'm trying to find a way to say this to you or voice this criticism of you in a way that won't hurt your feelings, but I don't know how to do that. So like, I'm doing my best here. Nevertheless, it feels important for me to communicate it. And so like, if you could give me some grace to be imperfect here, or maybe to voice things in a little bit of a rough way, that would be helpful to me to get the stuff off my chest. It is okay for you to be imperfect in your communication. I also really wanted to encourage people to channel this energy because a lot of times therapy content on the internet would have someone believe that it's possible to be some perfectly self-actualized human being who only voices things in perfect I statements and is super kind and respect. Like, no, sometimes communication is like rough and messy and difficult and just kind of like herky-jerky, and that's okay. I also think that this is important to talk about because the more that we flex those skills and the more that we give ourselves to communicate at all, even if imperfectly, the more that you're flexing those skills and you're building up that skill set in the first place. It's a lot easier to be a communicator when we've had practice at it. And so if what you need in this moment is to give yourself and to ask your partner to give you permission to show up imperfectly right now for the purpose of communicating at all, that's perfectly valid. It does not have to look perfect. You don't have to hold yourself back from communicating until you're a perfect communicator, A, because that doesn't happen, and B, because the way that we become a more effective communicator is by doing it imperfectly and learning from how that goes. Because especially if you're trying to word something in a way that like maybe isn't hurtful, or like you don't know how to phrase something, communicating with your partner, I don't know how to phrase this, so it might just come out kind of, prickly. Your partner might be able to then, after everybody's calmed down and we're like calm and able to respect each other, to voice to you like, hey, I was thinking about it, and actually I think I would have been able to receive it better if you would have voiced it this way. That's very useful dialogue for you guys to be having. And so again, I want to encourage people to release yourself of this expectation that you have to be like a therapist with a master's degree to communicate things perfectly, because like, first of all, we don't do that. And second of all, it's okay. Like, you're allowed. Again, I really want to drive home the point that communication at all, even if imperfect, beats the hell out of no communication at all. And so like, just practice the communicating. It's okay for you to be imperfect. That's all of the tips that I have. I thought 5 seemed like a nice round number and I liked it. If you guys want to see more of these, let me know. I'm happy to make more. I have endless communication tips and tricks. It comes up a lot in clinical work, so I'm happy to pass along some psychoeducation if it's helpful to y'all. So let me know. Like the video if you like the video, and also because it helps the channel. And so if you want to give back to the channel and like be a kind human being, that would be wonderful. Thank you. Subscribe to the channel because we do content like this. We also do a cute therapist reacts moment every now and again, and I'd love to have you stay and share the video to help the channel grow and to help each other grow. And I will see you guys next Saturday.